This is Michelle Arevalo Carpenter. She's actually the CEO of Impacto, a B Corp with a mission to support entrepreneurs by providing their network they need to thrive. She's a trailblazer, counting many firsts throughout her career with Impacto. She's opened the first private co-working space in Ecuador, also the first certified B Corp in the country. She's launched Green Crowds, Ecuador's first crowdfunding platform, and she's also the first woman under 40 to be named in the top 100 reputation ranking businesses and leaders in Ecuador. Michelle, so good to have you. Welcome to the summit. I'm so excited to share the stage with you. How are you, my dear?
Thank you so much. I am well, thank you. I'm very excited to be sharing with so many incredible women around the world, and it's humbling and inspiring to just be here in front of all of you.
Yeah, it's so great. How awesome is it to listen to Diana Wentworth? Right? She's so amazing. Indeed. She's actually going to be, teaching the next set of authors in the next set of books. So I just love her. So Michelle, let's just get to it because I want to ask you some questions. Are you open for it? And I know the audience is going to have a lot for you too. So make sure, remember, as we're talking, Michelle's, speaking, get your questions ready because we want to make sure that she and you get your questions answered. So Michelle, with you being the CEO of your B Corp, which is a company that has purpose beyond just making profits, which I love that about you. Can you tell us a little bit more about Impacto and how your company is actually making a difference in South America?
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a story, but the short version of it is that.
All right. Is that Michelle's wife?
Impacto is his home country, Ecuador, after 10 years as a human rights lawyer working in Africa, Asia, and Europe. And because I had only had experience leading nonprofits and civil society organizations with refugees and human rights, I only knew how to manage a team if it was driven by purpose. So when I knew when I started a company, I had to go beyond just profits. I wanted to actually pursue purpose. We set a corporation in Ecuador when corporations were even in the United States. We were ministers with that supporting our community and the markets.
Hey, Michelle, I think we're losing your Wi-Fi, and this is the brilliance of it because she lives in Ecuador, but I think your Wi-Fi is cutting out a bit, love. So I want to, let's double check in back with Michelle that we can hear you if you're back in the Wi-Fi. Because it happens. I swear, I've been traveling around the world for 13 years, and literally, Brian and I have run our business from every corner. Like when we were in Cusco, now you're back, I see you now. We were in Cusco, Peru. I was just gonna say, we would stand on the top of a rock, hold our phone up to try to speak with our team. So this happens and I love it. It makes it so perfect. Okay, so I heard what you were saying. You're talking about like you guys, opening up your company in Ecuador and going to make not just profits, that you really wanted to make and do it with purpose. And I think this is really huge. So continue with that, babe.
Yes, sorry about that. I hope that the internet is a little better now. Great.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I was just sharing a little bit more about how Impacto makes a difference. Actually, our company it's like a holding of companies, right? So because we're driven by purpose, our purpose is to make sure that if there's an entrepreneur that wants to make the world a better place, that he or she never finds him or herself alone ever.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, that's a pretty big mission. There's a lot of hand holding that needs to happen. So we decided to actually split our company into 4 fronts, and that way we embrace. I think this is a very women-led word to use in terms of business. We really embrace the social entrepreneurs. We have this co-working space, a network of 5 co-working spaces that are built to host people so that they have a place to go home and to feel like, okay, this is where I belong. And then beyond that, we have Impacto Lab, which is a business accelerator school that has graduated over 230 companies that have changed the lives of 6 million people. and between companies that create a social impact, maybe working with single mothers, or environmental impact, working on solar powered panels for people who don't have access to electricity. So that is the impact we're looking for in our school. And then we have Impacto Consulting, where we actually do kind of like some reverse services. We actually help large clients like the UN or like International Bank go through the process of understanding how to drive innovation towards social good. And then finally, Impacto Capital, an impact investment fund, which aims to bridge the gap in financing for early stage startups in Latin America. So 4 companies, 1 CEO, but an incredible team that is Impacto. And of course, always driven by our focus on making sure the entrepreneur comes first.
I mean, this is really big, Michelle. You're wearing some really big slippers, right? I mean, there's a lot there, and it's super inspiring. So I know, like, you were just talking about Impacto Capital. I want to ask you more about that, because I think that's the gap where many leave out, right? Is that they're teaching them, and then all of a sudden these people are like, wow, I have all this great knowledge, just like they do in America in schools. How do I actually start a business? But you're actually helping them, you're educating them, but then you have now become an investor and helping them raise capital to build their business. Can you talk more about that?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting transition to make. I think very few people get to make it, from being the entrepreneur that is always knocking on doors, looking for capital, looking for funding, to being the investor. So when I started Impacto, I used some of my savings and a lot of sweat equity. Mm-hmm. So of course, in the process, as we grew, we knew that we had to look for outside investors if we wanted to scale not just the company, but just the impact we were having in the world. Mm-hmm. So having little experience, it took me several years to figure out and demystify the relationships and the knowledge and the hacks that we all need to build a successful, maybe a virtuous relationship with investors, and therefore with wealth, which is like what all of you are here to hear about, our relationship with wealth. So in my case, I had the fortune of stumbling into a fantastic relationship with our investors, one that is built on trust and mutual understanding and shared purpose. But I know that it's not the case for everyone, because we work with hundreds of entrepreneurs. I've heard some horrible stories, startup founders that came across examples that what not to do when you're pursuing investment. What we call bad deals with investors with little experience, mm-hmm. or lots of impatience. Impatience capital is the worst type of capital. Deal terms that are untenable. Capital investments with fundamentally flawed understandings of what the end game is for their business. So then in all these things, I saw how it could go terrible. And in the middle of the pandemic, I had just given birth to baby twins. There I was scrambling to try to get the business afloat. And that, in the middle of the storm, the worst of the storm, that is when I decided it's time to be an investor. Mm. So, don't get me wrong. It was the decision was not obvious at the time, but looking back, it makes 100% sense. And let me explain, because this is how we tie into our relationship with wealth. Yep. So, as entrepreneurs rang and asked for advice on finding capital, and we're just scrambling, there was so much movement during the pandemic. Something in me switched and saw all these requests as a sign of abundance. Mm. So there wasn't scarcity of wealth. The entrepreneurs were telling me stories of abundance of opportunity in this changing world. Yeah. They were saying, I see opportunity to change the way the healthcare is delivered in rural areas. I need investment. So instead of saying, it was just this is a fantastic opportunity. So I guess I started seeing the abundance just kind of being overlooked. So for some reason, for some market failure, investment funds had overlooked all these incredible Latin American entrepreneurs. Maybe because they live in smaller markets like Bolivia or Peru, maybe because they don't speak English, or maybe because they just don't have the networks to get to investors. So it was time for me to stop and step out of the role of startup founder and entrepreneur and step with all of my baggage into the role of investor. And I call it baggage because let's call it experience, the humility, and a fresh perspective of the side of an entrepreneur. And that's how Impacto Capital came to be. And this transition has taught me 3 lessons, if I may share with you today. So the first one is that finance is your friend. If you want to step out of this mindset of scarcity and into the mindset of abundance, start thinking of what seems to be the most difficult part as your friend.
Yeah.
Or what I sometimes call fear means go. I'm afraid of spreadsheets. Okay, go. Go at that spreadsheet, go at that financial course, go at the numbers, because if you go at them with in a fearless way, you will be able to learn and understand all the possible angles of this new set of rules, because only the people that know all the rules can also know where to bend them when it's okay to bend them, to include all underestimated founders. And I knew in the depth of my heart that I saw so much potential with incredible founders that were being overlooked, but I wanted to understand the rules.
Well, you know what, Michelle, I love this. This is a big thing. So because the number one is really big, and I think what we need to do is I want to. I think number 2 and number 3, I want you to hit on those because and hit on them briefly, because then I know questions are going to come from them, right? Like it's because we've got a lot of people like literally I'm looking at my questions and I'm like, okay, we kind of like she's got a lot of questions, which is awesome. And I want to make sure we have time to get to them. So can you run through 2 and 3 and then we'll run over to the questions so that we can get the impact of that? Yeah.
Absolutely. I guess the number 2 is a very simple one. Surround yourself with the best. You don't have to know everything. Yep. And I found my co-founder, managing partner, Justin Schwartz. He's a financial whiz, and he really complements all the other things that I have this passion for things. He's just like, oh yeah, you can do this, you can't do this, or this is how you can do it. Mm-hmm. And the third one is just like, it's the mindset. If I had approached starting an investment fund in the middle of a pandemic, thinking of scarcity, I would have never done it. But when I started to think about it in terms of abundance, it was just like all of a sudden discovering there was a gold mine in front of everyone that nobody else had seen, and it was just there screaming for me to just go out and get it. Those are the 3 things that I've learned, and I encourage everyone to step out and step into this new role of abundance.
Well, Michelle, I love it because it's such a big thing, and I know this is also where, as you're speaking, I know you talk a lot about impact investment as well, and that's really what I'm feeling and seeing is like you found there is so many people with amazing ideas, and those of us that want to help make the world a better place, this impact investing is really the next level. And I think who is it that said it? Maybe Warren Buffett, that we're never, even during a recession is when we've either made the most impact and also made the most money, because we're never usually out of ideas, it's we're out of resources. And so now that you're helping connect those ideas to the right resources and leaving a massive impact, and I absolutely love it. And I just want to thank you so much, Michelle, not only for who you are, but for the contributions that you're leaving on the world. Your ideas, this is what is so beautiful when women come together. Like the ideas that you've got now are sprinkling forward to 40 plus countries. Right? And it's so incredible. And this is what I love about this space that we're here today. So Michelle, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for who you are. And we absolutely
thank you so much, Rhonda. Yes. If I may just leave with like one small phrase, because I know that people are asking about B Corps, and but I think that in terms of investment for B corporations and impact investments, just think of it as like traditional investment moves capital towards the future you predict. So if you think future is in microchips, you just move your capital there. But impact investment is moving capital to the future you want to build.
Oh, I like that.
Start moving your capital towards the future you want to build, and invest in fellow women, and invest in those companies that are changing the world and are making the world a better place. That's what we're all here for.
That's beautiful. And that's exactly what we'll be doing with this new Wild Network that we're talking about today. Like I'm really have this same vision of how do we connect women that are creating businesses with women that want to invest.
This past year, as we found ourselves closed off from the world and from each other, a book was being written by a small group of wild women. That book inspired the manifesto that gave birth to a movement. Imagine an emotionally charged letter of gratitude from one struggling anonymous woman to another anonymous woman who'd mentored her and awakened the wildness within her without even realizing it. One wild woman awakening another wild woman, inspiring her to believe when she'd almost given up, to let loose her wildness and step into her true power. Being a wild woman means to lead fearless, to love fearless, to live fearless, to be kind, thoughtful, driven, and balanced, to embrace honest wealth, to trust our intuition, to develop true leadership, and to welcome diversity. We are Women Gone Wild. Come be wild with us.